It's Friday, November 22nd, 2024. What word I was going for there. Anyway, let's start off with our promotional segment where I tell you that if you want to support this kind of excellent openings to shows, that you can go to supportourshow.com, which amazingly is still the correct URL. I have not botched that somehow. And a reminder that you can support Lando's work by going to patreon.com/OrlandoBrew, and the first 3 chapters of his freshman debut novel, Artificial Fear, are available not only in audio, but also video format. And you can find those by going to either youtube.com/OrlandoBrew for the video versions, or at the Patreon site. You can join at the free tier, but don't do that. Spend a little money. But if you can't, that's okay, and you can hear the audio versions there. You do post the audio versions there, right? I should have checked this before I started
Patreon?
talking.
No.
Yeah?
I don't bother.
Oh, where do you put the MP3s?
YouTube. I don't put the MP3s anywhere.
Oh.
Yeah.
What the hell am I making them for then?
I don't know. I was confused by that.
Oh, well, okay. All right. I'll give you another marketing tip. Number 4. You should offer an audio-only version, because don't assume that everybody wants to use YouTube or wants something that eats that much bandwidth. So it's not a bad idea to have the MP3s available.
True.
Especially since somebody went through the trouble of putting them together and creating them MP3 tags and putting artwork on them.
I was very confused.
I don't know who, but...
I was very confused.
Well, because eventually that's what you would release as the audiobook.
I know.
You know what I mean?
And I have to say, I don't hate the book as much as I thought I did. And this is an artist thing. You always hate, at least with me, I always hate the stuff that's come before, right? So like, so digging through this now, I don't dislike it as much as I thought I was gonna. But the thing is, like, when you say it's my freshman novel, it really is. I mean, I did a fuck ton of writing before I got to this
Good.
book.
I'm glad I got that right.
What's that? Yeah, it is. Yeah. I did.
I wasn't completely sure, but
it was. Yeah, I did a lot of writing before I got to this book, but this was the first, like, complete book project, I guess. I've gotten better too. That's the other thing I have to remind people, is that my writing got better. So like, this is really truly my freshman book. This book is like 20 years old, I think, at this point. Jesus Christ, is it really that? Yeah.
Well, yes, we're old.
Man,
Most, that's why I pointed out that it was the freshman novel, so that people know that there's better things. Not everybody goes the Frank Miller route, so generally people improve over time.
Yeah, so it's, but yes, chapter 3 is out. And we'll see if, anyone gets entertained.
There you go.
But you know anything else, right? Because I have something I'd like to discuss.
I did want to point out something adorable.
Yeah.
I don't often say that about products, but hold on. I want to make sure I get the company name right. It's like TT or what is it called? Hold on. I got these little lights on a lark, you might say. What I did say.
Like emergency lighting or like just fun lighting?
No. I saw on a website somewhere that somebody posted that there are these little LED lights.
Yeah.
That are in the shape of old film camera canisters. Little rolls of film you used to put in cameras.
Yeah.
So, I just want to get the company name. So they make these little LED lights, which are actually meant, believe it or not, to be attached to cameras. They're like a portable light that you can put on. It has a little shoe for, you know, where the flash would go on a camera.
Yeah.
So you would keep it in a bag or in a car or whatever. And the original one was just a white light. So it was just something that if you needed it, you know, and you didn't have anything else, you could just pop this thing on there really quick. And the little holder is magnetic, so you could actually magnetize this to anything. But they came out with, TT Artisan is the name of the company. But they came out with a color version that you can change the color on. And I've bought like 7 of them. And I just have them around because, and I know you appreciate lights.
Yes, I do.
So these are just, they're kitschy, not a word I generally ever use, but they're just these really neat little things. And they do put out an impressive amount of light. So actually, in an emergency, these would be useful. I'm not going to say that you couldn't actually use them for an emergency. That's not why I got them, because they only probably last.
I gotta tell you
hours,
that was a Ghost Rider statue I got from Sideshow.
Oh, I'm sure you could light your entire household on
That thing puts out an impressive amount of light.
Yeah, but what is that? How many batteries does that run on, or is it rechargeable?
No, it's a plug-in. It's a plug-in.
Oh, that's a shame.
It's a plug-in, yeah.
I mean, I get why, but
I really
you can't carry it around the house.
No, I know that. And the thing is, like, you're right. I got these little. Where do I have one in here? I have these little light pucks that I got. I think I made by Philips, and they're like literally the size of a quarter, right? Sure. And they have a little battery in them, and you buy them in like a pack of 6. But they're really great. Mm-hmm. They put out an impressive amount of light, and when you have power outages, you kind of just can leave them around, you know, and they put out just enough light that your eyes adjust, and you kind of have enough lighting around the house. But
that's why I bought a bunch of the LED candles, because they put out about the same light.
Yeah, you told me about that. Yeah, I haven't gotten.
Yeah, I have a bunch of them, and that way if you fall asleep, you don't have to worry about your house burning down.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's great.
Yeah, listen, New Jersey's in drought, and we have a ton of forest fires, so nobody's lighting anything here.
No, I know.
It's hilarious.
Amazing,
you and
I think I have the same thing in New York.
I think I have as many forest fires as you at this point.
You have more.
Do I really?
Incredibly. I believe for the year right now
here?
You have more.
I have more forest fires, and it's been colder, or it's been warmer here at times than over by you. What the fuck? You're experiencing a coastal flip.
I don't know what to tell you about that.
But as far as lights go, like for the house, I really like the nanoleaf lights. It's funny too, because you know when you like a product but you don't like the company. I don't really like the company, but I do like the things that they're trying to do. I don't like the fact that they want to fold everything into like a smart house type of thing, right?
Yeah,
but I do like this idea that they have these light panels you can get that they kind of stick to the wall, and you can kind of stick them together and create your own lighting effect. I have it's funny, we had a parent-teacher conference recently, and we used my office, and my wife totally forgot that like right behind where my laptop is like basically a wall of light panels. So when we were standing there was this whole like techno light show going on behind us. It's really funny. It's slow. It's not like you can set it. What I like is there's a lot of different color schemes to it. So like I tend to stick with the whole sunrise colors, but like you can kind of set it through a whole bunch of different color settings, and then you can also have it respond to music. So if I set it to music response and put the techno on, the whole room is just like it look hilarious outside. But they also make these light panels now that you can patch them directly into existing overhead lights. So you can take out like an overhead light and actually wire one of these panels in, which is kind of neat. So I like the products that they make. I'm just not fond of their push for, let's connect everything together on and make a smart device. Because honestly, their software, I actually even tried using so the individual nanoleaf shaped lights that you get come with a controller. It's a little plastic controller that clips on, and you can control the lights from that. I tried at one point using their app, and it was just an absolute train wreck.
Oh, all right. So you can control it without.
Yes. Oh, yeah. They come with a little, like I said, it's a little plastic unit that connects to it.
At least they do that, because I will tell you, not every company does that.
If they didn't do that, I wouldn't have bought lights for them at all.
No, but I mean,
yeah.
At some point, don't be shocked.
I have extras.
If they do away with it. No, I understand, but saying.
But is it
there's
that
way?
I don't.
Where there's going to be nothing like that.
Yeah, I don't have to connect to the internet. I don't need to have an app. I can just, I can just plug them into the wall, and I can adjust them to where I want and go. And the thing is, I like that. I don't need everything to be connected. I'm getting kind of fed up with this. Let's connect everything. Don't you want your toilet to tell you what's going on? Yeah. That's what we're getting. I mean, we're getting to that level of absurdity.
Congratulations. You pooped today.
It's going to give you poop goals, right?
Let's gamify shitting.
Oh, God. Well, I've had my 2 shits a day. How about you? Well, fuck you, man. I've had 4. Yeah. And then you'll have teens, like, basically doing the poop challenge where they take a bunch of diuretics and try to poop 12 times a day. I don't know how weird.
Yeah.
I don't know how weird it's going to get, because it gets weird. I think that's the thing to remember. Is as weird as you think something can get, it can always get weirder. Because wasn't there, like, the cinnamon challenge where kids were trying to eat, like, ton of cinnamon and, you know, I don't know, the set your hair on fire challenge or some shit like that. Yeah. And don't be...
I was looking to see...
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Oh, no, this is like a kid thing. Yeah, I don't know what this ski BD toilet thing is. I was looking...
You're looking if there already was a smart toilet?
I was looking to see if there was a smart toilet that would give you badges.
Oh, God.
Whoa. Wait a minute.
The toilet that texts you?
Reinventing toilets.
Good job.
I'm curious. How are you reinventing the toilet?
I mean, I have read the idea that they want a toilet that can examine your fecal matter as it goes through and give you, like, health monitors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what? My car tried a new one on me the other day. So my car asked me... Oh, God, it sounds terrible. So is it like... Yeah, so I got an app for my car. I finally got it mainly for the remote start for my wife, because my wife likes it when the car is warm when we go out. And sometimes, you know, I'm not around, so she wants to, you know, have a remote start for the car. Because otherwise, my whole thing is, why don't you just go outside and start the car? But that's me, you know. So we got this remote start. In there, the app basically comes out and says, hey, listen, we're going to track you. We're just letting you know we're going to track you. We're going to track your data. That's cool. If you want to use our services, we're going to track you. And I'm like, okay, well, at least they came right out and said, hey, we're going to fuck you in the ass. It's just a thing. We're going to do it, though. But then there was a later thing in there where the car was like, so can we monitor your how you drive and what you do with your car? And then we can use that information to see if we can get you deals from your insurance. And I was like, no. I don't want you fucking monitoring me. I mean, you're probably telling my insurance anyway, but I'm not going to give you carte blanche to do it. Like, fuck that shit, you know? And this is that interconnectedness where it's like, your car is going to rat on you. Your car is going to rat on you to your insurance. Eventually, it's going to rat on you to the cops. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you've got Honda coming around saying, hey, we can tell you what people's sexual activity is based on their driving behavior. And it's like, yeah, so I'm not a fan of the interconnected world. And I worry that it's like an old man thing where I'm kind of like, I'm getting old and I just don't like the way everything's connected. But no, you know what? I didn't like shit ratting on me when I was a high schooler either. You know? I'm still not on Facebook. I mean, I know that I'm on the dregs of Twitter as we know it, but I mean, that's mainly because I'm trying to get my audio project out there. But otherwise, yeah, I still hate all that shit. I don't feel the need for that level of interconnectedness, especially in arbitrary things. I think the thing is how it gets out of control. Because at first you're like, hey, we can connect these basic things together that make life more easy. And then they're like, hey, you know what? We've finished with those. We need new products. Let's connect your toilet and your lights and your stairs and, you know, your pacemaker. And let's connect everything so people have the ability to give you a heart attack. I mean, it's that kind of how far do you take it? Before something happens bad enough that everyone turns around and goes, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that. Because that's the flip, right? Is that you take a technology too far, and then, you know, someone says, yeah, that was a bad idea. Let's not do that again. You know? And I'm sure that'll come sometime around when they start trying to get technology in the body. I mean, Elon Musk is having a good month, and I have a feeling that they're going to really push to get that, what is that chip he's trying to put in people?
Oh, MindLink?
Yeah, MindLink. Yeah, I can't wait for that to get in people.
Link?
Yeah, read your contract very carefully, people, if you sign up for that shit. Let me tell you. Yeah, I can't wait for them to fry it.
I'm sure it will be endorsed by the new head of the HHS because...
Yeah.
He's
good.
He knows a thing or two about stuff getting into your brains.
We're gonna get into it, aren't we? Jeez.
You know, the funny part is you don't even have to get into it.
No, because it's there. It's just there.
It's
like
not even that, but just the ludicrous nature of what's going on. You don't even have to say anything. You just have to say the fact.
Oh God, yeah.
That this person is now going to lead the. I believe his statement was, "We're going to take a pause on infectious diseases," which I don't really know what that's supposed to mean.
I can't.
I guess
wait.
we're just going to ignore them.
You know what? Infectious diseases. You know what they love? They love a pause because they love to just say, "Yeah, you're right. We've been killing too many people.
No,
let's just take a break."
This is a thing that I have to agree that for all my disagreements with what'll probably be the incoming administration, I have to say that one thing that I'm glad that they have really brought to the forefront, and I think this is one area where you do have to give it to the new HHS head, is that he is going to make it front and center to most people that the thing that stops infectious diseases is ignoring them. That's really what does it. All the rest of this stuff, medicine, research.
I can always tell when you're winding me up for some bullshit because you get that voice. That
yeah, it's good, right?
Yeah. I can always tell. It's that sing-songy voice where I'm like, oh God, I know where you're going.
Here it comes.
Here it comes. Yeah, I can't wait because monkeypox. Was it monkeypox is on the continent? There was a really bad case in your state, wasn't there?
Yeah, and now there's the bird flu is now making gains and jumping. So we're gonna be in good shape. We're gonna be in good shape.
As fuck. So yeah, it's that kind of thing where you look at the next 4 years and you think, I don't know how this is gonna work out technologically and or biologically. And like, I don't want things to go badly. Like this is something to always remember. I don't want things to go badly. If anything, listen, if the administration coming in somehow did a bang-up job and made everything better, that would be great, right? But their definition of better and my definition of better are very different. So I'm sure that wouldn't happen. But if it did, that would be fantastic. I want nothing more for things to work out for everybody. I mean, some people I dislike and would like to see bad things happen to, but overall, I'll accept their success if everyone succeeds at the same time, right? I just don't have that kind of faith in the current situation because we've done this before, and the last time there was a plague. Maybe this time we'll have frogs, or all the firstborns will die. I don't know. So that's as close as I want to get to this. Do you want to get any closer than that? Are you good?
No.
I mean, it's going to come up. It's going to come up with technology. We can't run from it. Because at some point or another, Musk is going to say God knows what, and it's going to have, that Musk is trying to get in the way of the Onion buying, what do you call it?
Oh, they're
InfoWars. They're trying to make it so they don't get InfoWars, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So, but no, I'm gonna. So this is down the road. We're gonna deal with this. So it is what it is. But I'm gonna switch gears to something that we can talk about, which is that I finally finished season 1 of the Rings of Power. And I gotta say, I think the best way to describe the first season of that show. So you know how when you watch Lord of the Rings, the Peter Jackson version, you're watching it and you're like, man, there's just so much shit they have to get to. There's just so much here. Oh, there's an expanded edition that's just got so much more, and they feel like they have an overabundance of content, right?
Sure.
Then you got to The Hobbit, and you were like,
They did. I mean, they did cut the thing down.
Yeah.
So they obviously did have an abundance of content.
And then you got to The Hobbit, and they tried to stretch one little book across 3 movies. And you sat there and said, you know what? I feel like you guys don't have enough content here. I feel like you guys are really stretching. You're pulling stuff out of the appendices. You're really trying to make this go as far as you can. It's like the whole line from Fellowship of the Ring. It's too little butter scraped across bread. It's
sure.
Yeah, that's Rings of Power. Rings of Power feels like they had a third of a season of storyline, and then they stretched it across a whole season. There's so much of that show that is just glory shots and you wondering when something is going to happen, and like it's not even like there's good character development. I'm irritated with this show, and the thing is, I wanted this show to succeed, and it does look pretty. Like, give it credit where credit is due. It's a pretty show, but it's made me dislike the elves. Like I actively dislike the elves and their shit now, and it's actually ruining Lord of the Rings, because now when I look at the elves, I'm like, yeah, fuck you guys, because it's just the way they're handled, and like, yeah. And I got to that finale where you realize that the one guy, I mean, I knew he was, but the one guy is Sauron. Sauron? I'm not getting this right. Saruman or Sauron. Fucking
No,
hell.
Sauron is the big bad.
Sauron. Got it. Sauron.
Saruman is the evil wizard. So
Well, he wasn't then. So Sauron.
No, but okay. The person who got the rings forged to control everybody is Sauron.
Yeah. And so the thing that's irritating about this is that essentially, Galadriel knows that the rings are Sauron's idea, right? But she also knows that if they don't make them, it will the elves will basically wither away, and they will have to leave Middle Earth, right? Because there's something connected with the tree of light that they draw strength from, right? They're getting into a whole area of mythology here that like Lord of the Rings never really got into in the movies. So you're kind of sitting there going, so they're gonna die if the tree dies? Is that how this works? Is their physiology is connected to the light of the Elden tree? It's like, okay. But Galadriel knows. And what's interesting is that she chooses to do it anyway rather than leave Middle Earth. And I guess my issue is I'm kind of sitting there going, okay, but you know that's what he wants. Like, you know, like, this isn't, you know how they were like, but she says later on in the Fellowship of the, or one of the Lord of the Rings, where she says, but we were all of us betrayed, right? She's only betrayed in that she didn't know at first that he was Sauron, right? But then he told her. She knew who he was. And she still let them make the 3 rings for the elves. Like, I guess the thing, like, they make them anyway because they're like, well, if not, the elves will leave Middle Earth. And I'm kind of sitting there going, yeah, but if you guys left Middle Earth and there were no rings, how would this go? You know, like, would evil have come back, or would it not been able to come back? Like, would Sauron not have been able to gain the power to come? It's just such a... It's just such bad writing. I keep coming back to it. But for a show that is this pretty, to be this fucking boob-headed about shit, it bothers me. And so I got to the end of the first season, and I was like, I know that my son's going to want to watch the second season. And I heard that the second season picks up speed. But I'm like, oh, fuck. And then watching them dance around non-Gandalf being Gandalf, but not really legally Gandalf. I started calling him the artist formerly known as Gandalf for the remainder of the series, because, you know, because he's Gandalf now again, but not then. And it's just irritating. And then once he starts talking, like, as a voiceless mute, the character is kind of irritating. Like, the mystery of, oh, who is he? It wears off within 2 episodes. You know, and then you're like, okay, dude, I get it. You know, you're disheveled. You don't really know what's going on. You know, just get with it. And then by the end of the last episode, he's actually talking, and suddenly you're like, oh, it's Gandalf, guys. I was like, he's interesting now. He has things to say. I was like, this character was kind of shit through most of this show, and now suddenly he's talking. Maybe there's some hope. But, oh God, it did not land it. It did not make up for the rest of the season. It's just so poorly written. And yeah. And like, I get that their intent was to make you think all along that non-Gandalf was Sauron, right? But and maybe if I hadn't known, right? But the thing is that it's too obvious. Like, guy falls from the sky, big fiery fireball, right? It's too obvious that guy might be Sauron, right? And instead you're kind of sitting there going, anybody who's paying half attention has got to be looking around going, okay, well, it can't be that guy, 'cause that's too obvious, right? If it had actually been Sauron, who fell from the sky, and the show ended with him wiping out a whole town full of hobbits, I would have been more impressed with the show. Not for the violence, but because they went someplace that I didn't think they were going to go. But otherwise, like, it's ham-handed, the writing on this. And I get the fact that this wasn't written for me. I'm not the target audience. I don't know who the target audience is. It might be kids. I mean, if they wrote this for teens and children, then it works. But if they wrote this for adults, you know, unless this is that whole thing where in the desert, any water is water, right? So it's like, well, any Lord of the Rings content is Lord of the Rings content, whether it be good or bad. You know, maybe that's what it is. And maybe season 2 will get better. But the fact that I've gotten to the end of season 1 and I don't give a shit. In fact, I cared a little bit about the relationship between the dwarf and the elf. I don't give a shit anymore. Like, I don't like the guy who plays Elrond. And they made me dislike Galadriel. Which is a shame because when the show first started, I was most interested in her. And they just made her so obnoxious and shitty through the season. Where, like, you get to the end and you're like, yeah, you know what, Sauron? Yeah, I definitely think that you should bitch slap Galadriel around. You know, like, you're almost amused when he pulls the rug out from under her. So, and I'm sad because it shouldn't be a bad show. As I said earlier, I want things to succeed. I want to be entertained. I want everything to be fantastic. And it's not. And it's not because of how it looks. It's just purely the writing. It looks great. I mean, it looks a bit too polished, but it looks great. They have actors who seem to know what they're doing. They just don't seem to know what the fuck they're writing. And that seems to become the common theme of late with stuff I'm watching, where I'm like, hey, your show looks good, but it's written like shit. And maybe that's just my problem. But you and I seem to agree a lot on this when we watch a show and we're like, hey, this show isn't written well. And it's annoying because my wife and I are still watching that show, The Diplomat, which that show, man, that show's got great writing. You know, and it's one of those things, if you don't have all the special effects, I think sometimes when you don't have the special effects, you're forced to be like, oh shit, what have we got? We've got actors and writing. We better make this work. You know, like, The Diplomat keeps getting compared to West Wing. West Wing didn't have special effects. There's no fucking elves. There's no, like, magic battles with fire. There was no Balrog, right? It was just a bunch of people in a room, usually pretty dark, talking about intense shit, right? And you were with them because there was a logic to it. It was clever. You were surprised. You liked the characters, right? Same thing with The Diplomat. I mean, I've never given a shit about Kerry Russell before, but you know what? I actually like her character. The writing is good. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying what they're doing. This isn't even the type of show that I would normally have watched. I'm only watching it because of the good credit that West Wing earned with me, right? But because they don't have special effects to fall back onto, the writing is good. I'm enjoying it. They were forced to. I would have been gone after the first episode if it was shit. But with this, it's like, well, because you've got magic trees and elves and then there's a Balrog down there somewhere and all this shit. It's like, it's almost like they forgot the writing for just the look of it. It's like, hey, the writing can be crap. We got elves, you know, and that just it burns. It really does burn because the amount of money they spent on this, and the if they just had better writing, if they just had a better plan, a better structure, you know, Peter Jackson was pulling off the same shit. And he made something really great. Even I mean, I can't say whether it's worse or better than Hobbit. You know what? Fuck it. I enjoyed watching Hobbit more than I enjoyed watching this show. Which, like, says a lot. Because I didn't really enjoy Hobbit. But I like the dwarves. I think that's the thing, is that at least in the Hobbit, you had the dwarves, and they were fun. And I liked that, you know, I liked the merriment of that kind of group. But there's tons of you can point out that's horrible. I mean, they obviously stretched out the book, and there was just a mess. I mean, fucking Legolas turns into some sort of superhero by the end of that trilogy. But it just wasn't great. And there's a part of me that wants you to see it to make sure that I'm not going crazy. But at the same time, I would advise you not to. Because I don't think you will get anything out of this. Like, if season 2 is fucking amazing, but you need to watch season 1, that's one of those things where it's like, it's the anchor effect. Watch this shitty season for the backstory, and then season 2 is fantastic, right? That happens. It happens with other shows. And the only reason this show is getting a second season is because they spent so much goddamn money. As you said at one point, they've spent so much money on this, they're going to make all 5 seasons. But I don't want 5 seasons of this show. I'd love for them to take that money and to put it in something else. Or pay better writers. You know, fuck, go get Peter Jackson and his crew. They did a better job than them. It's like you can have it. It's all good looks with no personality. So, that is my final review of Rings of Power Season 1. I will not bring it up again. Thoughts, feelings?
You know, a lot of people ask why. Why treat the customer this way? Why? Because fuck them, that's why.
Who's that from?
That's from Chappelle.
Oh, there you go. I knew that sounded familiar. It almost sounded like Joe Piscopo.
Well, it's definitely not Joe Piscopo.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying it almost sounded like him. Yeah. So I don't think you're ever going to watch the show.
I don't have any opinion because I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I don't know if you are.
So, no. It's my policy that I try to enforce, which is let's see where it ends and how it ends.
Yeah.
If Amazon ends it and it has an ending.
Yeah.
And as long as I don't universally read that it is horrific, in other words, terrible, I'll watch it. But I'm not going to watch it if I don't know it's going to end. And even though I've said that I'm pretty sure this of all the streaming shows, because of how much attention and everything they made of it, I am confident it will end. And actually, what I think they might do is end it earlier than they said. So instead of it being 5 seasons, maybe it'll only be 4. But I do think they will end it. I think it has to end. If they just cancel it, Amazon still has ambitions to compete in the streaming market. And I don't think those ambitions are going to end in the next 3 years. So there is a lot of incentive for them not to just outright cancel something they spent so much money on.
It just feels like they just need... I mean, it really... They just need better writers. Because they have actors. Actually, they have the look. Everything is there. But the writing is just not... It's just not good. The storyline isn't good. I mean, I am irritated and bored most of the time. You know?
Yeah.
And,
okay.
yeah.
Sorry, I had to turn off AI results in my browser now because I don't care. I don't care. No, I don't want it. Thank you. Never and off. Very nice.
Fuck off.
Okay, let's see. Well, this is interesting. Hollywood Reporter. Rings of Power Season 2 ratings are strong, but below the first season.
What?
However, it is still a top 5 performer for Amazon. Therefore, okay, so that's a success.
Yeah,
so apparently it's gone down, probably because the reviews weren't good. I mean, the reviews for the first season were certainly tepid.
Yeah, and the hard thing for me, like I said, is you know, I'm watching a lot of shows right now, and to have shows with no budget, or no comparative budget, with no special effects, and have the show be so much better purely based on writing. I look at that and I'm just like, God damn it, pay your writers. Get better writers, you know, or is it that there's an absence of really good writers? I don't know. I don't know what it is. You know.
So I'm sorry, I misread this. So, top 5 all time. It is still number 1 for their series. So apparently it's doing well enough. And see, the interesting part about that is apparently at odds with some other streaming estimation services that have said it's quite a bit down.
Yeah.
So that tells you something right there. They're saying it's still number 1.
Well, that's okay. Yeah. Okay.
And that's,
listen. Number 1, you never trust
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is this more than ever convinces me that this show will go further because
Well, they want it to.
if they're making this up,
Yeah.
it is only because they've invested so much, and they will look like fools.
Yeah, you never trust what a actual streamer says their show is doing.
No, but that's what convinces me that it has a better than even chance.
Well, they
of
need
making
it. They need it to be a big deal. They spend so much fucking money on it. And the thing is, by telling people it's a big deal, then people go, "Oh, it must be a big deal." This is just classic psychology, where you're like, if I tell you it's amazing, then you're gonna go, "Oh, it must be amazing. I should watch this."
And the second season did get... This is the interesting part. This is one thing I've... And so I have to be fair about this. One thing I have complained about when it comes to streaming services, and I've done at least a couple of times complaining about
giving a show a chance.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why I said, if the second season is really good, then this will be one of those series where you had to get through the first season to get onwards, right? Because listen, I'm watching season 1 of Next Generation with my kids, and season 1 of Next Generation is spotty at best.
And so, by the way, is season 2. It's not like season 2 suddenly got massively better. There's a couple of classic episodes, but season 2 is also not that good. It's not as bad as season 1, although people will argue season 1's better than season 2. I've seen that argument.
Listen, Farscape. I love Farscape. Season 2 on, actually, the very last, 2 episodes. The second you get to Nerve, the episode Nerve, from Nerve on, Farscape is very enjoyable. And there's some weird fuck-off episodes in there. But overall, once you hit Nerve, which is towards the end of season 1, the show is really great. But before that, it is a little bit formulaic. It's still weird.
Oh, it is, but its weirdness carries it.
Yeah, it's weird. And that's the thing.
Its unique identity overcomes any of the problems because there was nothing else like that.
Yes, but the first season is the weakest of the show.
Well, it's setup. It's a lot of setup.
And that's what I mean is that, if the rest turns out to be great, but
you don't have Scorpius.
That's right. He doesn't show up till Nerve.
Stuff.
Yeah, the second he shows up and he roar a chair, that's when it gets funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I acknowledge that. I acknowledge the fact that some shows need time to breathe. But what baffles me is just the idea that so much money was thrown at this, and they didn't go out and go, "We need to hire some really great writers for this," and
yeah.
You know what? I'm kind of curious now. Let's see. I should look it up.
What's that?
What the other things that these people have written is.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. But that's so that's where I am going to be curious. It could end very strongly, and then it becomes okay. Well, is also what I will wait for is inevitably someone will make a fan edit of season 1 that will tighten it up.
Yeah.
So somebody could probably seriously, somebody will make a 2 or 3 hour movie.
You could cut a lot out of this.
In fact, let's take a look.
Have they already? Let's see.
Season 1 fan
writing
I bet
credits.
you somebody has. Oh yeah, here it is. Let's see. The 6-episode slim edit.
Oh, man.
I have edited the first season to be contained in 6 episodes, about 30% shorter. My goal was to preserve all main events and plot lines, but condense them into an engaging and faster narrative. Threads are shortened and rearranged so that every episode presents a clear progression of events without slow drag of the original. Oh, wow.
Interesting. Okay, so the guy who's...
Wow.
So one of the writing developers of Rings of Power, he is an uncredited writer on Star Trek Beyond. That's it.
Interesting.
And the other guy, let's see. He is also an uncredited writer on Star Trek Beyond. Is that it?
Oh, this is...
Hold on.
This is interesting.
Dude.
Listen to these notes on the changes this person made.
No, that's it. That's all they've written.
No. Okay, so listen to this.
Oh, fuck
Main
me.
plot changes for the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
I aim to change the perception of Galadriel. The show starts off with nothing is evil at the beginning with a shot of her as a child. There are no glory shots of her. A lot of her dialogue is cut, so she comes off as proud and obsessed, not offensive or hostile. She quickly admits that her friends saw in her the same evil that she was fighting. Khazad-dûm plotline starts in the first episode. Southland's plotline starts naturally in episode 2, after Galadriel and Elendil discover that Sauron wants to return there. There is no Palantir vision. Galadriel just convinces Miriel to go to Middle-earth, appealing to the legacy of the Queen's father. People of Numenor are clearly divided in reaction to this. elves do not have the chance to attempt escape from capture, hence no bad CGI wargs. Okay, you will know what that means.
Yes.
When Watchwarden stands up to the orcs, the other elf is killed and Arendor is taken to Adar. Elendil's children role is greatly diminished. Do those sound better to you?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes, because his one son dies, which I kept waiting for him to come back, and then his daughter is basically used as a point of view character back in Numenor.
Yeah, so I've already found numerous re-edits.
Oh yeah, you can slim this down, but this is exactly what I'm saying. The two head writers of this show, right?
Yeah, well,
the only thing they've ever written before was they were uncredited writers on Star Trek Beyond script. Right? That's it. In fact, sorry, one of the guys was worked in the continuity and script department in Jungle Cruise.
Oh. Well,
that
sounds
but my question is then, how the fuck did these two guys get Amazon's like at this point multi-fucking $1 billion Lord of the Rings show? Like, how do they get it? Because I'm confused. I mean,
well, there wasn't any money left for writers.
I mean, this guy was worked on what is it? He worked on one of the early screenplays for Flash Gordon. I guess they're trying to reboot Flash Gordon. But I mean, seriously, like when you look at this guy's credits, there's nothing. He starts out nowhere, and then suddenly he's running Rings of Power. Like,
he's got photos of somebody. Good for him.
God.
Which Charlie Vickers? Is that who you're talking about?
The two showrunners are... is it?
Oh, showrunners, not writers.
No, the showrunners are also the writers. They co-wrote a lot of the episodes.
John D. Payne.
So
what a great name.
Yeah, Patrick McKay and John D. Payne. And I'm not impressed. I mean, I hate this too because I hate when things suck and I have to fucking point it out. I want everything to be awesome. But I've watched this whole show. I've given them time, and the show looks beautiful. It really does. It's stunning to look at. It has lots of jerk off shots left and right. Where like, oh, look at this. This is a GIF. This shot's amazing. But the writing is just substandard. The dialogue is substandard. Yeah. Like I said, the only storyline that I was even vaguely interested was the friendship between Elrond and the dwarf prince. And and that's hilarious because I actively dislike the way they portray Elrond. And it's weird because he's almost kind of grown on me now through the relationship with the dwarf. But in the last episode, the dwarf's not even there. So I'm just stuck with pouty, angry, fucking pissed off Galadriel and Elrond not knowing what to do. You know, it's like at this point, like, they've got me rooting for Sauron. They really do.
Okay, so there are far more writers involved in these two.
Oh, yeah. They're the showrunners, and they've got writers
people
on all the episodes.
Okay, well, one of the writers has written some more things. Stranger Things, Cloverfield, Into the Badlands. Okay, what about this person? That person wrote 5 episodes. This person, Fringe. Whoa. An actual, and The Sopranos. Hold on.
You don't feel
it.
You don't feel it.
I also don't know what episodes. They might have written season 2 episodes. I don't know.
Well, I'm in season 1.
These might be people who were brought in when things were not...
I'm looking at season 1.
Going well.
Right, and in season 1, let's see. We've got... Episode 1 was written by 3 different people.
Always a good sign.
That's always good when the years are so far off, too. One of these guys was writing on the episode in 2022, and the other was 2024. So let's look at...
that tells you somebody was brought in to help.
Helen Shang, who wrote part of episode 1, right? She has written... she worked on The Man Who Fell to Earth, which I did not see. And then she worked on 13 Reasons Why, which I've never heard of. And that's it. Okay.
Oh, I've heard of that. That's a Netflix series.
Oh, is it? Any good?
Supposedly, I think it's more aimed at kids.
Okay. And then, let's see. This person...
girl who
interesting.
Suicide?
This person worked on Star Trek... Oh, look at this. Okay, so Glenise Mullins, right? She worked on Star Trek Discovery. She worked on Outer Range. She worked on The Continental. I'm curious what episodes of that she worked on.
That's not out yet.
Hold on. Oh, never mind.
Actually, I could be wrong. Maybe the Continental
I
did
was
come
I was
out.
about to be
I don't know.
impressed that she worked on Star Trek Discovery, but she worked on the last season when they jumped to the future, which I haven't read the best ratings about that.
I don't know. I haven't read. No, honestly, I haven't read a real consensus on how Discovery ended. I've read some good reviews and I've read some bad ones, and I don't know. And both from people I generally respect in review land. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
what does that
And
mean?
then this guy, Jason Cahill, who worked on episode 3. Yeah, he did Fear the Walking Dead, Halt and Catch Fire, Fringe. He's done some stuff, right? But I hate to rag on writers, man, but it just maybe this is a beast that was just maybe you needed somebody at the top to tie it all together. I don't know.
Not all writers are created equal. It's okay.
I know, but I hate.
And
Yeah.
here, you know what? Here. I'll give you the easy way to criticize without criticizing.
Yeah,
Perhaps this wasn't the right writer for this material.
I don't know. Yeah,
Perhaps a different story would have better suited this writer's talents. See, that's allowing for a person to be a good writer. Just saying that, I shouldn't write. I probably
Yeah, and
should never write romantic fiction.
and here's the thing:
Right? I mean,
fantasy in general
that.
is difficult because it's a different ball game. You know what I mean? Like it's. So yeah. So I will watch season 2 because I will be forced to by my children, and then I will let you know if season 2 is any better. But
Well, I hope it is.
I hope it is. I hope it is.
I would like to
'Cause
watch
let me
this
tell
at
you,
some point because they certainly put enough money into
Yeah,
it.
I know. We skipped the last season of the Female Doctor, and then we switched back to the new Tennant series. And honestly, I like the new Tennant series, but part of the reason I like it is because it's kind of the old Tennant series. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's more of something
Well,
we've already.
I think that was very intentional.
I think it was very intentional, and it's more of what we already kind of got. So I'm kind of like, this is fun. I love Donna Noble. This is great, right?
Sure.
But I haven't gotten yet to the new guy. And I'm looking forward to it because I want to find out, if he's good. I always try to give the new Doctor a chance. And in the end, I didn't give up on the Female Doctor. My family did. Which, man, it was really weird, actually. The way that my daughter and my wife gave up on the Female Doctor long before me and my son. Because I never gave up on her. And my son didn't really give up until the end. He just got bored with it. But, like, my wife and my daughter, they were done with her before, like, the middle of the first season. So it's fascinating, like, that effect, Because you're like, really? You don't want to give this a chance? And my wife even said something to me that, like, so threw me, where she was like, she just doesn't come off as intelligent. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess I never looked at the other I'm like, I almost got the sense they wanted it to just be male. And it's like kind of a weird thing where it's like, hey, you know how hard it was to get the Doctor to be female in the first place? Like, give it its due, please. And here's the thing, listen, keeping fantasy on TV is hard because, it doesn't always play well. I watched the first season of Rings of Power. I gave it its due. Please do better. But it's, I understand this is difficult. I understand there's a lot of elements. I understand that we're lucky that we get anything to some degree. But everything about Rings of Power was funded. So why wasn't the story better? You can't blame it on other things. You can't blame it on bad acting because the actors did a great job with what they had. You can't blame it on poor special effects. It fucking looked amazing. The only thing I can really blame it on is the fact that someone just did not know how to put this goddamn thing together. And you know what? Maybe the underwriters were fine, but maybe the people who ran the show had never ran a project like this before, and they just didn't know how the fuck to do it. To some degree, the Marvel movies, we're not going to talk about them now, but the Marvel movies up to the time of Infinity War and Endgame, right? To some degree, they worked because they had well, some of them worked. Some of them were kind of weak. But you had somebody, you had someone looking at the overall image of it and going, "This has to end. We know where we want to go with this vaguely, right?" And so they made sure that everything kind of went in the direction. There was a kind of logic to it, and DC wanted to do that, but they put Zack Snyder in charge, and he was like, "I want everything to be gritty," and then he tried to jump ahead. And rather than make a few movies, he was like, no, let's just skip to Endgame, which didn't work because you hadn't spent any time with these characters, so you didn't really give that much of a shit. Like, does anyone give a shit about Cyborg? Does Cyborg show up anywhere other than just that one movie?
I want to say no.
I don't think
but
so.
In fairness, I did not watch Batman 5 Superman in its entirety.
Yes, no, Cyborg is not in that.
All right, well then I guess not.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like it's
okay.
Whoever's masterminding the project.
Yeah, but, okay. To be fair though.
Yeah.
Because I thought Cyborg was actually very good in the longer version. So when you say nobody gives a shit, well, you can.
No, what
make
I mean
people
is,
give a shit
but there
if
was
you
no
write the character well.
Yeah, no, but there's no. They didn't give Cyborg a movie. They didn't give him a miniseries. Like they just dropped.
They did. They just put it in. They made Justice League. This is the Cyborg movie with a bunch of people around him. They kind of did. They put characters in that needed, or they assumed needed no further explanation.
It's the first time you see Flash. It's the first time you see Cyborg. The Aquaman movie hadn't come out yet, so he was new. You had 3 new characters.
Wasn't Aquaman in Batman 5 Superman?
No. Pretty sure he isn't.
That was the first appearance of all that? No.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm not going to tell you it's a good movie, but
my point
I
is,
would not pin that on Cyborg.
These large projects even work better when you have somebody who really has a strong idea of what's going on and where they're going with it. And I don't get that feeling from Rings of Power. Listen, I don't get that feeling from Star Trek's season 1, Next Generation. Like, there's definitely let's throw everything at the wall here and see what fucking works with the budget that we've got. Right? I mean, I told you the other night we watched the first episode with the, what are they called? The Travelers. And the first thing you were like, hey, how are those hand prosthetics, huh? And it's like, oh, they're bad. They're really bad. That whole Traveler character looks awful for what he's meant to be.
Yeah.
The special effects department. I don't know what's going on.
He looks goofy, not impressive.
No, not at all. Yeah, exactly. So I acknowledge that this could be the beginning of something that's
He looks like an alien version of a science teacher. And I know it's terrible to say.
He does.
But
there is something very sort of uptight about him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I acknowledge that this could be the beginning of something, and that 3 seasons from now we'll be like, well, season 1 sucked, but the rest of the show was so good. Maybe these people will find their legs. Listen, Game of Thrones, people loved the beginning of it, hated how it ended, right? These things happen,
and that's I've said that in a couple movie reviews. I'd rather something end well than start well. If you're gonna have to have a dip on one side or the other, so put it at the front.
We'll. I mean, did they? Actually, I didn't check this. Did they change the showrunners at all?
Yeah. I don't think so. It shows the same people as far as I can tell.
Okay.
But showrunners are one part. If the problem is the writing, which it does sound like it is, and based on the other reviews I've read, people agree with you. If the problem is the writing, as the showrunner, you fix that by bringing in better writers. So the showrunners don't necessarily have to change. You have to identify objectively the problem and fix it. Now, the issue is if the showrunners are the writers and their ego doesn't allow them to understand that their writing doesn't work, well, then you have a problem. So,
yeah, I mean, and then
I don't know.
Like, yeah. Anyway, so
yeah, I will be curious what you think to season 2, because honestly, based on your review of season 1,
yeah,
I think you're going to arrive at one of 2 things. One is I don't care how much better this gets. I don't care anymore. Or, okay, enough things are moving that it seems like they must have recognized the problem.
And here's the thing about it. I want it to succeed. I guess this is the thing.
Oh, no, but that makes you a good person to review it because
people,
you're being honest about the problem.
It's when you really want something to work that you are most brokenhearted by it. It's the true believers are the one that break the hardest, right?
Oh, you have to tell me.
So
I still own an Odyssey 5 goddamn entire season set. Don't tell me about brokenhearted.
So I want it to work because I love Lord of the Rings. Jesus Christ, I've seen the extended edition of those movies so many times. I watched all the Hobbit movies. I won't necessarily watch them again, maybe. Plus, you know what I think the Hobbit thing that really bugs me is I don't like Martin Freeman as Frodo. Or, sorry, as Bilbo. I'm sure
No, I agree. I thought that was weird miscasting.
He doesn't work for me. Like, there's just...
No.
Yeah.
It's not just the look, it's also the performance. Yeah, I
like
watched
Martin
that
Freeman.
Hobbit movie, and I knew.
I think that he's good in a lot of the stuff
actor.
he does, but I just didn't buy him as Bilbo.
No.
So the thing is, like, I want these things to work. I want every Star Wars show to work. I want every Lord of the Rings project to work. I want them all to work. I want the money to be there, and I want good writers, and I want to have amazing storylines. Like, the world is better when you have that kind of thing in your life. The fact that Strange New Worlds is fantastic, it makes me so happy. You know, I was happy with season 2 of Discovery, where it was like, it was good, it was getting good, it was kind of fun. Pike showed up and it was getting really good, and then, like, Strange New Worlds knocked it out of the park for me. That's what I want. And I know that when you're making a project, it's very tough to know if what you're making is going to work at the other end. Ridley Scott didn't know that he was making a cult classic when he made, Blade Runner. He was making a movie. He was making a movie. He did the best he could. He was fighting producers. They didn't want the movie he was making. It was a big mess, right? It was a flop. It's become a cult classic. It's become a movie that people look back on. But when it came out, it was a flop. That movie is considered a failure. So there's no way to know if what you're making is going to work. There's no way of knowing if you're going to hit a nerve. There's a right time, right place effect that happens very often with art. And it happens with TV, and it happens with movies where, like, something makes sense for when it came out and it hit a nerve and suddenly it was very popular, right? But I feel like we exist in a world now where streamers can try to force things to be popular. They don't want that mystery effect because you can't bank on that. So what they'll do is they'll go, this is big, this is good, this is in our top 10, you should see it, this is our top 10, watch this, this is our top 10. And whether it is or it isn't, it doesn't matter because they'll just keep telling you. And it has an effect. And the more you tell people something, the more it becomes true. It just bleeds in there. It happens in politics. It happens in movies. It happens in everyday products. Why do companies say, our sponges are the best? You keep saying it, somebody will listen. That's the way that bias works. So, yeah. I want it to be good. I don't want it to let me down. And I'm going to watch season 2. If it weren't for my kids, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably wait till it was totally done and read some reviews. But I won't. I'll watch it with my kids. And I'll watch it, and I'll hope that it's good. But you know what? What is it? That Star Wars series that they pumped a ton of money into that they decided not to do a season 2.
Oh, the Acolyte?
Yeah, isn't the Acolyte had been just shelved at this point?
It's canceled.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like...
Yeah.
It just didn't work.
Nope.
And the funny thing is, like, when the Mandalorian came out, right, and it was kind of the only thing they had really going, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. But I really enjoyed it because there was something so low-key about it. It wasn't trying to be a world-changing story. It was like a small space spaghetti western mixed up with Lone Wolf and Cub. And it was good. And honestly, the more world-changing it has become, the less good it has become. So I would say that the last season of Mandalorian was probably its weakest. Like the whole storyline with taking back, like I like the idea of them taking back Mandalore. I like a lot. There's aspects of it I enjoy, but compared to the first 2 seasons, it feels a little weaker because they're going into this trap of trying to make it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's like, there are detective characters that we have followed through countless novels and countless seasons, because it's not about the end of the world. It's not about life-changing events. They're usually, part of these small stories, these small everyday visions of a world, and we enjoy them. We don't need to take back Mandalore. We can just have little adventures with the Mandalorian and his, weird semi-Jedi child, right? And I think that it's a mistake that everybody needs to ramp up the odds. It's the whole, the sequel. Well, the sequel's got to be bigger. It's going to be twice as big. And it's like, does it? Does it really? I mean, sometimes it just needs to be a different story. It doesn't need to be bigger, but there's this like thing in Hollywood where it's like, it's got to be bigger and bigger. And we're going to wow you. We're going to blow your mind. It's like, if the writing is good and the story is interesting, people will stay for the characters. Right? I mean, that's the thing. Next Generation. You said yourself, the first 2 seasons aren't that amazing. But I like the characters. I like the ship. I want to be there. And that keeps me there. And it's like some of the episodes are pretty silly. Like, I mean, I know, is the Sherlock Holmes episode in season 1 or the Moriarty episode? Is that season 1 or 2?
I want to say 2.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, there's the holodeck episodes.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the whole thing.
No. But what I'm saying is the holodeck episodes are so silly.
Let's see. It is the... Where's Moriarty here? I'm kind of curious because I seem to remember... where is Moriarty? Here he is. The Hologram. James Moriarty. Yes, indeed. What was his first episode? Yeah, well, it says Pulaski, so that's season 2.
There you go.
There you go.
So, yeah. I could just leave it there. I'll just leave it there.
What?
Do you have something to elevate me? Do you have something to interest me? What have you got?
I do. Wow, holy crap, we're an hour in. Wow. I was mostly belly aching about Rings of Power. All right. I will give you.
You know what?
My movie review.
It's not just belly aching about Rings of Power.
No,
it's belly aching.
I'm exaggerating.
No. It's belly aching about the general issue of the industry and poor writing and wanting things to be better. And that's the thing. That's why I really appreciate you coming to me with some of these movies that I will never see, because you come at me and you describe them to me and you have such hope within the context of the movie, and you highlight the things that are done well, and you don't just sit there and say, fuck this movie. I mean, you have before, but that was drawing the straight number 9. Yeah. You have a way of like trying to find the good even in the bad, and you even might try to make the argument for why a movie like this should be remade. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is that, when I look at Rings of Power, I think of these movies and I think, man, I was like, you guys had so much money to make this, and like I said, it looks amazing. It just looks stunning, and everybody is like perfect looking, and the dirt is perfect, and everyone's, it's like, and then you're just like, well, then why does it not work? But I realized something as well, is that I'm not the audience. Like, if you start looking at demographics, right, for like what general media is written for, right?
Well, I don't.
No.
I don't know if that's really true.
I don't think it's written for me. If you look at who you are in the general demographic, I don't think it's written for me. I don't think I'm who they're after.
I will say, no. Okay. With very rare exception.
Yeah. Most
media produced is aimed at basically like 18 to 30 for whatever it's made. That's just yes. Normal. However, I do think the idea with this show is also partially that they're hoping that people who are fans of the Peter Jackson stuff will respond to it. So I don't think it's not written for you, but it's not not written for you. It's just that it's not focused on you. So yes, to some degree, there are elements that are probably aimed at what is perceived, I don't know if this is true or not, but what is perceived to be the streaming audience. And I think that's why all this stuff is, and it's not like this is the only one that are so dragged out, because that's how they all are right now. They're all being made to fill the number of episodes as opposed to something, because a lot of people I remember complained, or I don't know, maybe complain's the wrong word. When the first season of Mandalorian came out, there were episodes that were longer and shorter. And people were thrown off by that because that didn't fit into either the traditional TV model or even the streaming model. But that's because they were writing and filming to the story.
Yeah.
That's why the first season of Mandalorian is so strong, is because longer episodes weren't just longer because we wanted to add 10 minutes of nothing.
There was more story.
When the story wrapped up, show ends. That's how it should be.
And it's an incredibly trim show as well. Like, there's no wasted shots, really. Like, that show really just puts in only what it has to. And that's why, as it gets more bloated, you're like, okay.
And that's what I'm saying is that's not the typical way. And I think that's why it threw people off at the time, is that most streaming services are structured a certain way. I don't like it. I think it's very bad. But that's how most of them are, because the early successes were structured that way. And this is true of any, media that is propelled by a large company. They look at what worked and they copy it. They don't decide to go out of bounds if they don't have to.
Listen, at the end of the day, it's a business. And if they can get the viewership they want and pay less for it, then that's what they do. The fact that they paid as much as they did for it in the first place, that still baffles me.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what do you got?
Okay. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. You may have seen this one. Do you recall a film from 1997 titled The Assignment with Donald Sutherland, Aidan Quinn, and Ben Kingsley? Have you ever seen this movie?
Hold on 1 second.
It came out the same year as the Bruce Willis Jackal film, and it's about the same thing, but it got, of course, completely overlooked.
Jesus, haven't we talked about this before?
I've never seen this movie. No.
We've
talked about the Jackal.
I know, but
I just searched for our entire thing. We've never talked about it.
I feel like you and I... Oh, you know what? You and I discussed the existence of this movie. Because we discussed the fact that was it what's his name? Aidan Quinn is the Jackal, right?
Yes, he plays two roles. The Jackal and the guy after the Jackal.
One of them looks hilarious. He's got like the long hair and the beret.
Yes.
We talked about this when we were talking about some other movie. Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's...
And you saw that they're doing a Jackal series now, right?
Yeah, which I think actually has a lot of potential. I think could really work because of how long he operated for. You could do something with that.
Okay. Well then, this looks like a great 90s movie.
Yes. Okay, so this was recommended by a listener. I got an email from Mike, who has authorized using his name. I won't use last names, but he definitely said I could say his name, so thank you, Mike. He said, hey, you should watch this. This is very good, and it's often overlooked. And one of the reasons it's overlooked is because originally it was going to be titled, I think, Day of the Jackal or The Jackal, but then the Bruce Willis movie came out the same year and was titled that, and they knew they weren't going to win against Bruce Willis, so they just retitled it to The Assignment, which, in honesty, is not a great title. There were way better titles they could have come up with than The Assignment. It's not a great title. So I could easily see somebody overlooking that. And so much of this, I can't find anything on a budget, which is fascinating. It only made like $350,000 in domestic. I imagine it had more of a budget than that because it doesn't look that bad. It definitely is at that crossover point with 90s special effects. There's some spotty compositing here and there that you'll notice. Some early CG that is noticeable. Not terrible, but noticeable. Luckily not overused. So essentially it is... I don't remember much of the Bruce Willis film because I didn't think it was all that good. They made a big deal about it, and I remember watching it and going,
Oh, it's a Canadian movie.
Yeah. Well, listen, it doesn't look cheap. So I'll give it that right off the bat. It does not look cheap.
Yeah.
And they got really good people. And I have a hunch, because when you look at a movie like this that clearly didn't have a ton of money and was, competing with a much more well-known actor. I mean, Bruce Willis and Aidan Quinn, I know who wins between recognition on that too, on the two of those, acting ability aside. So I would suspect that the way that they got the names they got, because, I mean, Donald Sutherland and Ben Kingsley are not no-name people. Aidan Quinn either, but really the headliners are Donald Sutherland and Ben Kingsley. I mean,
yeah, but
Kingsley
they're
won
also,
an Oscar,
but they're
right?
also, the thing about Sutherland and Kingsley is that they're working actors. They show up in a lot of movies, especially where especially smaller projects if the script is good.
Yeah, but I think each of the people involved saw the script and realized that each of them was going to have one really good character moment. And so you do a movie like this for that one character moment, if nothing else works, where you get it kind of... And that's really what this movie is, because the thing is, I said this in my short review as well, I often will say the first 10 to 15 minutes of a movie will tell you whether you're in or out. Almost all my movie reviews, I've said some version of that. This movie is the opposite, because the first 10 minutes are a completely different film. They feel like an early Michael Bay film. Now, that's not a criticism, but it changes into a completely different movie, because the opening is really just showing you what the Jackal has done leading up to where the movie is set. So you see him doing all these terrorist acts, and Donald Sutherland is there for the two major ones. In the first one, the Jackal recognizes him. He doesn't know who the Jackal is until after the bombing that almost kills him happens, but the Jackal knows who he is and kind of smiles at him before he drops a grenade in the cafe and then blows the whole place up, and then Sutherland nearly gets blown up as well. And then he specifically requests him as the person to ID him when he takes a bunch of people hostage, which that is, I believe, based on a real event where he took a bunch of people hostage and took a flight. So a lot of this is based on real things the Jackal did. Whether any of this story itself is true, who knows? But in any event, we start off, we see all these terrorist acts. They're very fast, quick editing, lots of actiony stuff, running in, shooting, big explosions. Like I said, Michael Bay type shit. But the rest of the movie after that is far more like Hunt for Red October, where it's a lot of planning, training, and all the stuff leading up to where they're trying to outthink him. So it becomes a character movie.
I'll give you a quick, blurb on the actuality of the character.
Mm-hmm.
So the real, this is the AI overview. Oh, whatever. Carlos the Jackal is, is that how you spell Illich?
Like
Illich
it's
Ramirez,
like Illich Ramirez
Sanchez. A Venezuelan terrorist who carried out a series of attacks in the 70s and 80s. He was born in Venezuela, was a Marxist-Leninist who served in the Vietnam War and worked for the CIA. He was educated in communist political theory and revolutionary thought, but also enjoyed a lavish lifestyle. And then, let's see, threw a grenade into a Paris drugstore in 1974, killing 2 people and wounding 34. In the 1970 raid on the OPEC headquarters in Vienna, 3 people were killed. Shooting and wounding the president of Marks and Spencer in London in 1973. And then 2 failed attempts to launch grenades at Israeli airliners at Orly Airport in France in 1975.
Yeah, so the first 2 things you referenced, the grenade and the OPEC, those 2 events are shown. That's the opening. And so then he first encounters... So the first clip I'm going to play is when he has taken all these OPEC people
hostage. Oh, interesting.
Hostage.
Okay, so the name...
Yeah.
The media gave him the name Carlos the Jackal after a fictional terrorist in Frederick Forsyth's 1971 novel, The Day of the Jackal. Bruce Willis, his movie was The Day of the Jackal from the book. Whereas,
okay. Well, but we confuse them if you saw the Jackal.
No, absolutely.
On book,
but that's the difference, is that Bruce Willis's movie was based off of the Frederick Forsyth novel, and then Carlos the Jackal from your movie is based on the real person that was the
real guy,
referred to as the Jackal.
Yeah, and that lines up with the things that you said. So we get those. The first, like I said, very, very fast, lots of explosions, things blowing up, people shooting, are the kind of those first two events. And when he takes the OPEC people hostage, the American embassy, because Sutherland is a CIA. I don't know. He's not an agent. He's higher up, but he's not at the top. So he's like mid-level CIA. Let's say.
God, this guy does not look at all like what I thought he would.
Oh no. He looks very pudgy.
He does. He's unassuming. I mean, That's good though.
Yeah, he
Honestly,
looks more like
listen, the best killers are the ones that you look at and you're like, that guy doesn't look like a killer.
he looks like the Mets pitcher who gave himself the nickname Big Sexy, even though he looks like that guy. I can't remember his name, but anybody who knows the Mets will know who I'm talking about. The guy he looks more like Babe Ruth than Brad Pitt, let's put it that way. But in any event, they basically call over and they say, hey, your guy, we know that he knows what the Jackal looks like. They have no pictures of him. Nobody really even knows what he looks like, but they know that Shaw, which is Donald Sutherland's character, like, your guy has seen him. He was there at the grenade attack, and he knows what he looks like. We need him to come ID that this is actually the Jackal. We want to make sure that this isn't somebody just claiming to be him, because if it is, then maybe we'll try to, kill him. But if it's the Jackal, then we know he's a maniac, and we don't want to take a chance. So this is the dialogue where basically the head of the local CIA branch or whatever, or the director of that area, is meeting with Sutherland's character to tell him, hey, they want you to go ID him. And Sutherland's like, well, why don't I just kill him?
$20 million ransom.
Who's asking for it?
The leader claims to be Carlos. He wants the credit. The Austrians want a positive ID. That's when your name came up.
Who brought up my name? You?
No, the guy who claims to be Carlos brought up your name. The Austrians want you there to ID him.
Where?
The airport, tonight, 2 a.m. That's when they're going to provide the plane to fly him and his hostages to Libya.
They've got him here, and they're just gonna let him walk?
Well, they got no choice, do they?
Bullshit, they've got no choice. Let them handle it like the Israelis would.
Well, they're not the Israelis. It's not their fight.
Let me explain something to you, Mickey. Really simple. They want me to identify him at the airport. I'll get real close to him. I'll make one nice clean shot, and that'll be the end of this prick and the end of this shit.
Prick has got 70 hostages.
Fuck the hostages.
What did you say?
We handle it with the minimum loss of life.
We will handle this with no loss of life.
You don't get it, do you? What do you think he's going to do with that $20 million invested in a pension plan? He's going to use it to finance his next hit. Maybe against us. Let me assemble a team.
God damn it, Henry, there is no team to assemble. We need some fucking dinosaur or something. We are out of the assassination business. I know you got some personal heart-on against this guy because he made you look like an asshole, and now he's gonna rub your nose in it. Well, so fucking what? I can appreciate your feelings, Henry, but it's not going down on our soil. It's not with our nationals. It's not our fight.
So that establishes that Sutherland does,
Honestly,
number one, the thing where he says, fuck the hostages.
Honestly,
is
that
great,
makes me really want to see this movie.
No.
Oh.
This is the thing, is Sutherland is playing a really interesting character because he clearly is so obsessed with getting Carlos that he will use anyone. You figure this out as it's going along, because at first he comes across, you think he's like kind of the traditional, almost Jack Ryan type, like, following the rules, wants to do everything. And you realize that, no, he's so angry at Carlos because what he's referring to where he says he made you look like an asshole is because he knew who he was, and he even lit his cigarette off of Sutherland's cigarette and then blows the place up and almost kills him because he knew who he was. So he smirks at him. So clearly, he knew who he was and wouldn't have cared if he died. That's the whole thing that makes Sutherland so angry as the movie's going on, is that Carlos clearly just does not care about anything. He just has no moral whatever, no rules, no boundaries, no nothing. He just does whatever he wants to do. And so he has this little gun that he hides on himself, and his plan is that when he IDs him, that he will shoot him. And so when they get to the airport, and this is, so the grenade attack is 74, this is in 75. Or sorry, and then the OPEC thing is in 75. That's where that little piece is set. So when he meets up, Carlos comes up to him because they're like, well, you have to come up close enough he can see your face because it's raining. And Shaw's like, oh, this is good because he'll have to get close. With the rain, he can't make me identify him from range. He's going to have to get near me. And so he comes up to him, and when he comes up to him, he's getting ready to shoot him. And then Carlos recognizes him and says, oh, I remember you. And he holds out his hand. And so right when Sutherland's about to pull the gun, the guy he was just talking to, his superior, runs up and grabs him because he sees his arm moving and says, no, we can't have a picture of you of shaking his hand. Do not put your arm up. And he basically stops Sutherland from being able to shoot him. But not because he realized he was going to shoot him, because he didn't want somebody to take a picture of him because it would look bad for the agency. So he stops this guy from being killed right then and there because it would be bad for optics, which is just, they don't really linger on that, but you sit there and go, yeah, that makes sense. So then we cut to 88. So it jumps forward. And now we're in Jerusalem, and you see what looks like Carlos is walking around, and he's taking pictures, and, you know, he looks suspicious. And so a bunch of what we find out are Mossad agents see him and grab him. And they grab him and they start trying to interrogate him. And the local Mossad commander is Ben Kingsley. So he's basically, you know, beating him up. And he's like, just admit you're Carlos. We know who you are. We have your picture. And he shows him like a picture, and it is him. And he's like, I don't know who that is. I'm a U.S. naval officer named Annabelle. But he's Cuban, which becomes kind of a plot point a little bit.
Wait, hold on.
I don't. He pronounces it like Annabelle. How would it be pronounced?
Aiden Quinn?
Yeah, is Cuban. Yes.
Okay, I'll go with it. All right, go on.
Yep. Yeah, they explain his blue eyes because his paternal grandmother was Irish or something.
No. There were blue eyes in Cuba. Believe me, I've got some family.
They make a point to explain it because I guess that's uncommon, so they make sure they.
Yeah,
point
it's
out.
not common, but there were people even in my family line. I get it.
Yeah, so at first he says, I'm a Cuban tourist and my name is this. And then when they keep beating him up, he's like, all right. I'm a U.S. naval officer. I was told that I had to make up a cover story because I'm here. And that's why I said I am actually Cuban, but here's my actual name. I'm actually a U.S. naval officer. And so they hold him for, I think he says, you'll hear it in the clip, like 2 weeks. And then they finally realize that no, he is in fact a naval officer who just happens to look exactly like the Jackal. Gee whiz, I wonder if that's going to become... Yeah. Yes, exactly. So he goes back home, and then on his doorstep shows up Donald Sutherland, who is going to explain to him why they need him to stop the Jackal and why he's the only person who can.
Lieutenant Commander Ramirez. Holy cow.
Can I help you?
Yeah, my name is Jack Shaw. I'm with the government. Can I come in for a minute? I want to talk to you about what happened to you in Israel.
I want to sue their government. I want to sue their Mossad. I want to sue the guy who broke my ribs. And I want to sue gold in my ear. That's who I want to sue.
Well, that's going to be a little difficult. Mrs. Meyer is deceased.
Well, then you might want to have them dig her up because I intend to sue her.
Well, it's not exactly within my field of expertise. Specifically, I am with the Central Intelligence Agency.
The CIA?
The man in this photograph look familiar to you?
Oh, shit. That's not me.
Yeah.
I know it looks like me, but it's not me.
Yeah, I know it's not you, too.
This is Carlos guy?
Yeah.
Mommy! Look!
Joey, get down out of there. That's too high. Be careful.
This is the only recent photograph we have of him. Telescopic lens, half a mile away, taken by the Israelis, Mossad, the guys who picked you up. I mean, you can't really blame them. The resemblance is astonishing.
Well, listen to me. I hope you're not trying to talk me out of my lawsuit, because what you don't understand is they kept me chained in that cell for 2 more days after I identified myself, okay? After I told them who I was,
Lieutenant Commander, I'm not here about your lawsuit, okay?
Well, what I'm trying to...
Can I finish?
Yes, sir.
Carlos is the single most vicious terrorist in the whole world. He has personally carried out or masterminded the worst terrorist acts in modern history. Men, women, children, little kids like your boy down there, blown to bits, slaughtered in cold blood. Why did you join the Navy?
Serve my country.
To protect her from her enemies, right? Carlos is one of her biggest enemies today. And terrorism is regrettably a growth industry, so he's becoming a bigger enemy every day.
Okay, can I just ask you why you're telling me all this?
Because the governments of Most of the countries in the free world have been trying to get Carlos for the past 10 years. And they have come up with absolutely nothing. Because there's really only one way to get him. Which is to say there is exactly only one person in the whole world who can get him.
So obviously we know where this is going, but Ramirez refuses, says, nope, I'm not interested. And this leads to Shaw starting to kind of show up everywhere he is. The first place is this big, I don't know, I guess it's a naval party or whatever. There's a bunch of admirals and everything. And so he goes up to him and, so there's an admiral there and Ramirez, so we'll call him Good Aiden. Good Aiden goes up to the admiral and says, oh, very nice to meet you. This is my wife, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, yeah, Ramirez, yeah. Oh, I love Mexican food, so I hope someday I can, come to your house and have a great Mexican meal. At which point the wife is like, yeah, we're Cuban. And he's like, oh, same thing, right? And just basically, obviously a completely clueless white guy at the top of the naval chain. So they kind of wander off, and then sure enough, Shaw pops up and he's like, huh, yeah, they thought you were Mexican, huh? Yeah, these people are all assholes, right? You should come over and work with me. And then, amazingly, and I should have clipped this, but I didn't want to go completely crazy with clips. Sutherland goes into this thing where he says, that thing where Darth Vader says, come over to the dark side? He's like, come on over with us. We get things done. Like, he's so openly, in a way that most of the time movies don't have characters talking like. He's like, you can sit here with all these people and you can have wine, you can have dinner, or you can come with me and we can get shit done because we're working off the book. We don't give a fuck. We'll kill anybody, whatever. Come work with me, man. And I'm telling you, we can get this guy. Like, just straight out is comparing the CIA to Darth Vader, which is astonishing, and it's great. So, again, Ramirez says no, and Shaw keeps popping up, and he finally comes, he orders him to go here. He gets his superior officer to order him to go to a hospital with him, and he takes him into a room, and they're both dressed as doctors, and he says, in the room we're going to go into is one of Carlos's most recent victims. And they go in, and it's this little kid who's been blown the fuck up. And Shaw says to the parents, oh, this is one of our top doctors. He's going to go through the chart now so that he can assess how to save your son. And fucking Ramirez is horrified, and he starts rattling off. Shaw's rattling off, oh, yeah, his spleen's been ruptured, blah, 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 blah. All this stuff because it's a little kid who looks like Ramirez's son. So he's basically manipulating him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But using this kid and the parents. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And so they come out. Obviously, he knows what's going on.
Yeah, I understand why this movie couldn't go up against Day of the Jackal.
Oh, yeah.
Because...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the bad guy. The good guys are almost in as much of the gray zone as everybody else.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There's a real moral gray zone that exists in this movie. And that's the thing, is it could never have been... I mean, I don't even know if this could have been made in the U.S. because there's no way I can see any of the U.S. military signing off on this movie, and they're often brought in as consultants. So, yeah, no, this would never have made it anywhere here. So I understand, yes, why it's got such a small box office. But finally, he realizes that Shaw's never going to let up. So he finally agrees, and they have this cover story where he's going to go on a submarine. That's the cover story for the wife and the family. Is I'm going on a submarine. I'm going to be gone for 6 months or whatever it is. So they bring him to Canada, which is convenient because, of course, that's where the movie is made. And they take him into this abandoned prison, and they start this whole training thing where they're basically saying, you have to become like him. So we're going to make you able to operate without any morality, without thinking, without having any of the stuff that all your naval training has drilled into you. We have to break that stuff all out, and we're going to give you combat training.
I guess that's the thing I don't understand. Why?
Because their plan is, the idea, which I don't think I have... No, I didn't capture the actual plan of it. So their idea is that Carlos is backed by the Russians and... I want to say the Saudis. I can't remember. There's basically two large governments that help him out because a lot of his terrorism ends up hurting the Western nations that Russia and I think it is the Saudis, but I can't remember. Let's just say the Russians, that the Russians don't particularly like. So it benefits them. So what they do is they give him money, they give him people, they give him supplies as long as he doesn't go against them. And because he doesn't really care, he's fine with that because it lets him pursue whatever he wants everywhere but there. So they have this agreement. And so what they want to do is they want to have Good Aiden meet with one of the Jackal's girlfriends, and they're going to start manipulating things like depositing money, and they're going to make it look like the Jackal has gotten bored with the Russians and is now going to start working with the CIA. And that will turn the Russians against him. And then they'll have to assassinate him. So that's their plan, is they just want to put good Aiden into a couple of places, get him seen, have some money being transferred, and because he looks exactly like him, they want him to be able to do a couple of things to get the Russians to decide that it's not worth taking a risk and kill him. And to do that, he's going to have to meet with people that the Jackal operates with. And therefore, he has to be able to convince them. This is just like, undercover work. It's the whole thing where you have to become whatever it is. Otherwise, they will recognize you right away. And in fact, there is sort of a thing where at one point, because they want him, which is the weirdest fucking thing. I mean, I guess I get it, but I feel like this was put in as just a TNA thing. They have him meet up with an ex of the Jackals who really hates him, and they're like, okay, you have to have sex with her. And he says, why? And he's like, because you have to understand how he has sex with his women, so that when you go and meet with his current girlfriend, if she wants to get down, you have to be able to get down like Carlos. And that means, of course, that like Carlos slaps her around and basically all but rapes her. And so he has this really uncomfortable, weird sex scene in the dirtiest fucking place you could ever imagine, where the girl's like, you have to bite me, you have to like choke me, you have to punch me, like all this weird shit, because that's how Carlos does it, because it's all about control and power, not about pleasure. It's just a way to have a weird ass, hardcore sex, not hardcore in terms of that, but like, rough sex
provocative sex scene.
Yeah, it does have a payoff later, but basically it's to understand that you can't be gentle. That's not how Carlos is. All of the people in his life are disposable to him. And she looks at him when he takes his clothes off, and she goes, well, you're smaller than him, but it's okay. I'll show you. And I'm like, wait a minute. If you recognize that his penis is that much smaller, how is this going to work with the other woman? Has she never looked at it before? It's such a weird, specific plot point. But the fact that she says it, I don't know whether she was trying to provoke him to make him rougher.
Wait, does she know that he's not Carlos?
The ex that hates him knows. Yes, they have.
Okay, so she's specifically training him.
Yeah, she's training him on the art of rough sex.
Okay.
Yes.
The art of
but
rough
she
sex.
says this thing where she's like, well, she looks down and she goes, well, you're smaller than him, but it'll do. And I'm like, well, if you notice that, won't another woman? If it's that noticeable,
that is a question that neither of us can answer.
It's a weird.
You know what? Oh man.
Thing.
You know what? Holy shit. Oh god. Would my wife notice if I had a doppelganger? And
that's what I'm saying.
It would have to be
because
if he was significantly bigger or smaller.
That's the thing. To say that means you'd have to notice it,
depending on the specific situation. Like,
right.
And I guess this is my technical question. If they didn't see it, right? Would they know from having it in them?
You
that
have to
was
wonder.
Smaller, they'd know if it was significantly larger.
So I have to think that the idea. I have to think the idea was that she was saying that.
I've got some calls to make after this
to make him rougher.
Because I'm curious.
Yeah, you can report back. Yeah, you can give us the update on that. But I have to think that what she was trying to do was make him angry so he would be rougher with her. That makes more sense, because otherwise it's a really strange.
It's a giveaway, isn't it?
I would think. I mean, if it's like saying, "Oh, you dog leg to the left, he's to the right." Well, whatever. Wait a second. Whoa! Somebody's going to notice that. Like, or you don't have that giant birthmark in the shape of Woody Woodpecker.
You've got me thinking now about like if there was a doppelganger of myself, like what would be a deal breaker? Like, what about yourself? I mean, I'm lucky. I'm covered in tattoos. So whatever poor bastard wanted to be my doppelganger, he'd have a bad couple weeks. He'd have a. You would take. It would take.
Okay, listen. When you ask your wife this, you have to ask it like this. Would you? This is such a stupid pun. You would have to ask her if she could identify the Doppledangler.
The Doppledangler. Oh God, that's awful. That's your show title right there. The Doppledangler.
Oh, it really is.
But
God.
like, if someone was gonna be me, they'd have to get on my tattoos, and I think that would carry a lot of it because but the problem is they'd look fresh. That's the other problem too. Like there's having a lot of distinguishable marks kind of works for and against you.
Right.
But yeah, so it does make it. But the thing is, outside of tattoos, right?
Yeah.
Like, what would be a deal breaker? What would your wife or your... I mean, not your wife, too. That's the thing.
Well,
These are not his wives.
Yeah,
He
that's the
doesn't
thing. They're
live with
disposable,
these
so it
women.
is purely
These
physical.
Are, these
It
are
is-
like
it-
fuck
yes.
partners. Yeah. So the question is, what would be
Right.
the thing that they would notice?
Yes, exactly. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
Is with him, because it's all about that, it does make sense that would be the identifiable feature.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Or because he's not shown to have any tattoos, because that would be the other thing, is tattoos or physical marks of some
Yeah.
kind. And when they show him, he looks, I mean, he's Aiden Quinn in both things, so he's identical. So they lucked out there in the terms of this movie. That the only other difference is he has brown eyes, and good Aiden has blue eyes, but they just use contacts. So whatever. That's the only other thing that's different about them. So anyway, he has this weird sex scene in, like I said, the dirtiest fucking place in the world. I mean, I don't. Oh, God, they could have gotten him a nice hotel room at least. But anyway, then they take him. They're doing all this training with him, and they get to a point where, and one of the things is they're making him do like physical exercises. They're having him do all the shooting training so he can respond instantly, all this type of thing, and they keep making him eat porridge as his only meal over and over and over, which gets him to hate it. And every time Ben Kingsley, who turns out to be the guy who's the Israeli liaison, of course, and he's the guy who took the picture, that's why they have him in there. And what you realize, though, is he's actually the nicer of the two, even though he is ruthless the same way that Sutherland is. He isn't obsessed the same way, so he's actually kind of looking out for good Aiden. He has a softer side to him, which I really like, because I expected them both to be the hard asses, and instead he's kind of the good cop. And so he's always smoking a cigar, and he's blowing the smoke in good Aiden's face, and good Aiden hates it. And so finally they get to the fact that he's been there for a couple months, and it's Christmas, and Sutherland and Kingsley are eating these really nice meals, and they're making him still eat porridge, and he finally kind of loses his cool and blows up at them, which leads to an explanation for some of what they've been doing.
So you finished all your porridge? Yeah, I finished all my porridge. Good. So now you can have some more.
The puta! Fuck it, man! I ain't no more of that shit!
All right, Miguel, amigo, whatever is the matter?
I'll tell you what the fucking matter is. I've been here 8 motherfucking weeks, and all I had to eat the whole time is this shit. I'm losing weight. I'm shitting 3-4 times a day. And you cocksucker, you damn near kill me with those fucking snowmobiles. And it's Christmas Eve and I haven't seen my family in 2 months. And I still don't know what the fucking plan is or what I'm supposed to be learning here.
Congratulations, you're behaving like a child, like a spoiled brat.
Which is gonna save your life. Because acting like a tight-ass Navy brass is exactly what will get you killed.
As a child, Carlos was fed that porridge that you love so much. Every day he hated it. Every woman, every man he's ever been close to, he told about that porridge. How the very smell of it made him feel sick. Now it makes you sick.
When he was in school, he was a scrawny little kid, always the last one picked for teams. He felt clumsy. We made you feel clumsy.
Carlos's father smoked cigars. The same ones who smelled you complained about. The only cover that will save your life is the cover you believe in yourself.
And of course, that's what they're doing. So they're setting all this up to make
I would just
him
like to note,
start to.
he's really channeling fucking Pacino's Scarface in his accent.
Yeah, the accent really comes and goes. I'll just say that. It comes and fucking goes.
Okay.
Most of the time, he doesn't even attempt it.
Okay.
So most of the time, he's just talking like
For a
Aiden Quinn,
moment there, I
assume,
thought
talks.
he was going to be like, oh, I want to show you my little friend. You know, like...
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing is when he speaks Spanish, he is talking like that sometimes. But when he speaks English, he just speaks English. He just sounds like generic guy. So yeah, it's they probably would have been better off getting somebody because Aiden Quinn is what, Irish? I don't actually know. What
I'm
his
pretty sure
nationality is, but
he's Irish.
Well, he was born in Illinois. He says he's American. Okay, so but his parents are of Irish background. Okay. And he did live in Dublin, Ireland. Right. Okay. So that makes sense. So yeah, they probably should have, if they wanted to play that angle up, I think maybe they just couldn't get anybody who was better known. But I would have probably gone with a Cuban actor.
You know what? Listen. This is the whole Scarlett Johansson thing.
Sure. Yeah,
They
he's
just-
pretty, so that's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's a good-looking man. So they're training him and they're training him, and they finally get to a point where he is where they think he's ready to actually start to carry out the stuff they want to do in the field. And so they're out, and they tell him this thing about, okay, we're going to have you meet with his current girlfriend, and we're going to have you make her make a deposit that we want the Russians to see. So you're going to meet with her in public, you're going to be seen, and this is going to get the Russians to think that Carlos is getting ready to jump. And that's, of course, what the plan is. So right after they have this meeting where they tell him this is going to happen, then Kingsley basically, this is what I mean as an example of where I think Kingsley is more sympathetic towards what Good Aiden is going through. So he pulls him aside and he's like, look, let's take a walk without Shaw here, and I just want to kind of, and this little bit of dialogue is, again, very familiar if anybody has ever watched a movie where somebody has to go undercover or has to pretend to be somebody else. But like I said, it does establish that Kingsley is not as amorally obsessed as Sutherland is. It's just like a little bit of dialogue with him.
Jack doesn't know we're having this talk, and I don't want him to know. Understand? Listen to me. You're going to feel more alone than you've ever felt in your life. It's going to hit you all of a sudden, and you think your heart's going to jump out of your chest. You'll think everyone around you can hear your heart beating. You'll think everyone around you is an enemy terrorist. I want you to be prepared for that, so that you can deal with it. Understand? Nothing prepares you. I want you to know this, so that when it hits you, you don't panic. You feel the fear. You get rid of it. Take some deep breaths, splash some water on your face, look in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, I don't want you to find Anibal Ramirez. Find Carlos. Because if you find Carlos, that's what everyone else will find too. And if you find Carlos and anything goes wrong, he's the only one who can get you out of it because he's the best.
Right, so the typical kind of undercover thing where you have to believe in it or no one else will. But like I said, it's just a nice little kind of moment with Kingsley where he is clearly more aware and concerned about Good Aiden actually making it than it seems like Sutherland is. Sutherland's just using him as a tool. Until late in the movie where he seems to actually care, but I feel like that's a little clunky. It kind of comes out of nowhere. So either just, I don't know. I'd be interested in what you would think of the way Sutherland's character kind of goes back and forth, because I can't tell if it's just the actions of somebody who doesn't, because he says at one point that he doesn't have any family, he doesn't have anyone, all he has is the job, and so maybe it is that he just has no social structure whatsoever.
He's got nothing to hold on to.
Yeah,
do you ever see?
It's weird.
Oh man, what is that movie with Spy Game? You ever seen Spy Game?
Oh sure, not for a while, but yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So was it? That's Brad Pitt and Redford, right?
Yes, Redford.
And the thing is that Redford's character isn't married. He's divorced. He doesn't have anything. He's going to retire, and he doesn't really have anyone. And so you sit there and you say, well, why the fuck is he going above and beyond to save this guy and essentially this woman, right? But he's trying to save this guy that he trained. And it's like, yeah, well, you know what? This is the person you have a connection to. This is the person that you have taken to some degree the responsibility for. So you can almost make the argument that it's not clunky. It's that at this point in the project, Good Aiden has become Sutherland's project. He's become the person he is responsible for. And he doesn't want to needlessly destroy him if he doesn't have to.
Yeah, I think that's what they were going for. I think the movie just somewhat clunkily conveys it. Like I said, it's not a big deal. It's just something where he suddenly becomes concerned for him at the end, and it's like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. But I think it makes sense in what you're talking about. I think that is what they're going for, and maybe just didn't quite convey it as smoothly as possible. But in either event, they send him out, and they had done this training exercise where they have him walking through this little set apartment that they've got constructed, and they're trying to get him to quickly be able to identify something that's off about where the area is. And one of the things is he notices, because they're like, okay, in this scenario, you just came back from being away for a little while, and your wife says that that nobody's been there, and that, she's just been waiting for you to get home. Can you verify whether she's telling the truth or not? And he goes through all the apartment. He notices several things that indicate that, in fact, she's lying, that she's probably had a man there. Up to the point of realizing that the idea is supposed to be that Sutherland was mimicking the guy because he smells the cheap cologne. And then Kingsley says, yeah, that does smell like your cheap cologne. So it's like a little kind of funny moment. But he identifies something in the trash bin that his wife doesn't smoke, but there's a book of matches in there. And so when he goes to meet with the current girlfriend, he does all the rough sex stuff and convinces her he's Carlos and all the rest of it. And as he is like looking through the apartment, he notices a cigarette in the trash bin that's unfiltered, and she only smokes filtered. So immediately he knows something is off. And he basically puts a gun to her head and finally gets her to admit that she's been meeting with the French secret police, at which point they raid the apartment, at which he's like, oh shit, and he has to run because they don't know who he is, and they're trying to kill him. They're trying to capture or kill him, and if he gets captured, then the whole plan is blown. So he's running, and he gets fucked up to the point where he falls this long distance, and one of his contacts comes out, which I like because it's this little detail that the impact knocked one of his contacts out. So he's basically got one brown eye and one blue eye, which doesn't ever become a problem in this scene, but I noticed it, and they don't ever remark on it, but I'm like, yeah, you fall, and you hit something hard enough, your contact could literally fly off your eye. That does happen. So it was a nice little kind of visual cue that he took a hell of an impact. But like I said, it doesn't ever get commented on. It doesn't matter, but you notice it. And so finally he gets pinned and he gets cornered by one of the guys, and he has to kill one of the French Secret Service guys and just blows his head off and like splatters himself with his brains and his blood and all the shit, which he mentions it later. But basically he manages to just barely escape. I think he gets shot, or like he gets a flesh wound in his shoulder, and he manages to escape and gets picked up by Kingsley and Sutherland and is basically telling them, hey, what the hell happened? Because these guys cornered me. And this is him. And this is going to give you a little bit of Sutherland's kind of, you get both of the angles here where Sutherland is basically very cold and uncaring. And Kingsley also doesn't have much of a problem with the fact that he killed basically friendly officers, but he frames it in such a different way than Sutherland. So it's just a nice kind of contrast of the two of them that essentially have the same goal, but they just have different kind of personalities to how they kind of convey what they want.
What kind of intelligence is behind this operation? How the fuck could you not know she was working for the French DST? Aren't they our allies?
Hey, how could we know? It was their operation and they didn't tell us about it. I mean, we sure as shit didn't tell them about you. You were beautiful. The Russians have to be convinced that that was Carlos in there. Amos! We have to work up a scenario for the Russians about that girl. Realistically, if that really was Carlos in there, he'd kill her for bringing the DST. The Russians saw the DST. They know if the DST was there, they were there to get Carlos. The French made it perfect for us. The KGB now think you're Carlos. They took the bait.
You fucking maniac. Jack, I killed 4 men. Hey!
Annibal.
Just a second here! I don't like killing our fucking allies, all right?
Policemen wind up killing other policemen. It happens. I'd rather have you here feeling guilty about them than to know that there's some meeting somewhere in Paris tonight and they're all sitting around feeling guilty about you.
You did what you had to do, and it worked. Carlos himself couldn't have done any better.
Again, just a little thing where you see the two different approaches, because just in how he talks, Kingsley is definitely more sympathetic and trying to calm him down, whereas someone's like, yeah, you did it, you got him. Like he is almost like a child in how giddy he is that the plan went better than, no concern over the fact that Quinn almost died, none of that stuff. It's just that, yes, it worked better than we thought, and luckily those guys almost killing you actually helps us out. So like I said, it's just the two sides of how they're handling him. And so as Sutherland says, Carlos finds out what's happened and doesn't. I do like the fact that throughout the movie, Carlos really doesn't ever figure out that there's a plan against him. He just thinks that people are turning on him because he's so paranoid. So he says, yeah, you know what? Well, this is why I don't trust women and whatever, and go kill her. So he sends one of his assassins, who I guess is supposed to be Japanese because of how Sutherland refers to him, which is not a very kind description of the Japanese. Just take the first 3 letters and you'll have your description of how, you will hear him say it at one point. But basically, he sends this guy to go kill her, which he does, and then blows up all the cars around her. So he shoots her and then detonates some kind of explosive to just blow everybody up around. And so, of course, that then further convinces the Russians that, yeah, he's going after her because she basically we saw her with him, and she bungled it somehow. So they're now more convinced than ever. And so on the way back, they're at... Carlos tells the hitman, or his agent, go through Heathrow on your way back. I want you to take the London route back. And it just so happens that Quinn, Kingsley, and Sutherland are at the airport at the same time. And so Good Aiden goes up to buy cigarettes because now he's smoking because Carlos smoked. So he's kind of like picking up his habits. And wouldn't you know it, the guy, the hired guy, comes up and says, what are you doing here? You weren't supposed to be here. And then he says a password. And of course, Good Aiden doesn't know what the password is, so the guy immediately pulls a gun on him and takes him into the bathroom to kill him. Kingsley sees it, goes in there, manages to surprise the guy, shoots him, but also is then shot a bunch of times and is mortally wounded, very clearly. And Good Aiden, and it is terrible because, again, he's the sympathetic one. You want Sutherland to get killed if one of the two of them is going to get killed, but that's not how it goes. And so he says, you have to get out of here. He's dying. He's like, you can't be seen here. You have to leave. They won't put anything on you if you're not discovered here. Get out. And Good Aiden's like, all right, I'll call an ambulance. And so they leave. And then the next thing you see is they're driving up to a building, and you see Sutherland is on the phone. And he's basically, through code, trying to figure out whether Kingsley is still alive. And finds, and this is the dialogue where he finds out that Kingsley's dead, and then he has this little bit of dialogue which will come back which will be relevant at the end of the movie.
It's off. The director wants an operational review board.
When he asked me about that newspaper, if I just could have just bullshitted my way.
Shut up. Could have shot him, that's all. When he said that newspaper shit and you figured what was up, you could have shot him, but you didn't have a gun. There wasn't anything else you could do. It was a password. You didn't have the response. Anything you said would have backfired. I had the same thing once. Awfully warm for this time of year. The guy was supposed to say yes, but not as sticky as 2 summers ago. Yes, but not as sticky as 2 summers ago. He says anything else. He even hesitates. I shoot him. I shot him. And just like the Jap was going to do to you when he figured out what you were. Bad luck for Amos. Bad luck for us. You and me, we're out of here. Just like that. Not the madam, kid. I'm just one of the whores. So are you.
Wait, did he just say,
So then,
I'm not the madam, I'm just one of the whores, so are you?
That's exactly,
Got it.
that's
a good
exactly
one.
what
he
says.
Jesus.
Yeah, I like that line. Yeah, that's a good one. So basically, at that point, the CIA suspends the operation. They don't outright say it's not going to happen, but they need to review it. And so they send Good Aiden back to his house, and he tries to resume his life, but then the next thing is he's having sex with his wife, and gee whiz, he's being unusually rough with her, and she basically says, stop, what is wrong with you? And she initially thinks that he's been having an affair, that while he was gone, he started seeing some other woman or something, and that's why he's changed. And he's like, what, do you want me to get the logs from my submarine duty, which of course there was none, but they'll fabricate it, saying I never got shore leave or whatever. And then they go to the next day they go to his son's Little League game, and he sees this father being really abusive towards a kid, being, one of these parents who's like, get out there and win. What the hell's wrong with you? Like pushing him around. And he says, hey man, go easy on the kid. It's just a game. We're supposed to be having fun. And the kid's like, are you his father? Then get the fuck away from me. At which point he almost kills him. So he starts beating the shit out of him and gets arrested. And, horrifies everybody. And he's doing the thing where he's like hitting the bridge of his nose with the heel of his hand. I'm like, shit, man. Is he actually going to kill him? Because I know if you do that right, you can kill somebody just by hitting their nose the correct way. You can actually kill somebody that way. And that's what it looks like he's doing. But no, in fact, he just almost kills him. But they arrest him for assault, and he's in jail. And he gets bailed out. And gee whiz, who do you think's bailing him out? But it's Sutherland, who's like, yeah, you've got a problem, which is that you can't get him out of your head because you know he's still out there. You also have another problem, which is he's going to come after you and your family if he ever finds out what happens, and he will eventually find out. So you either can help me because the operation's back on, or you can leave your kids and your wife and everybody as targets. So you think about that and you get back to me. And so he goes home and he's there, and then we see his wife talking to him, and his wife is just very disturbed by him because she can tell something is wrong with him. She doesn't know what it is, but there's something that's off about him. And this, I like this last clip because in a lot of movies where this type of thing happens, there's a point where I think to myself, okay, if it's this bad, you have to tell her. You just have to tell her what's going on so that she doesn't just think you're nuts, or, you know, that she doesn't know anything. It's just, that would be my response. So it always kind of irritates me when they just say, no, nothing, and they just keep it a secret. I mean, I know that's probably what you actually have to do, but narratively, it's always irritating to me. So I'm actually kind of glad that he finally just relents, and he's like, okay, I'll tell you what's going on. This is the scene where he's actually just lets her in on what's happening.
Oh, no. I won't let you do it. You're not going back to those subs. It's changed you, Anibal. You need some help. Maybe you can get some kind of stress disability.
Shut up.
No, I won't shut up. I want the man I married, not this animal who's standing in front of me now. Where is he, huh? Because I don't want to be married to whoever you are now. I don't want our kids to be raised by whoever you are now. They deserve their father back. I deserve my husband back. Whatever's going on out there with your job.
With my job? What do you think my job is, Marla? Huh?
Want to know what's going on out there with my job?
What do you think is out there?
Huh? A nice, pretty, safe little world with your shopping malls, Little League, and ballet lessons. Huh? People are killing out there. And I'm one of them. I've murdered people. Not clean and surgical, firing a missile from some sub, but close with a gun so that their brains splattered on me. And they weren't even the enemy, Mama. They were allies. They were on our side. That was just to keep from blowing a cover. I've killed men. I let a friend die. I betrayed everything I've ever believed in. And you were right, I fucked other women. You know what's worse? I have made you and the children a target. Because there's someone out there that will kill you and the children if I don't kill them first. Now that's my job, Maura. And if you don't mind, I'm late for work.
He does the little accent thing at the end there, which I
Yeah.
think is supposed to be him shifting into Carlos mode.
Yeah.
I guess.
I hope.
I don't love it, but whatever. I still like the fact that he just tells her what's going on,
Well, he
because often in
kind of
these
tells
movies,
her. He doesn't really tell her,
Well,
hey, you know, I've become,
uh,
I'm undercover
yeah,
or some
but-
shit, you know, like.
it's far more than most characters in movies like this will tell the other person. At least he lets her in somewhat. Most of them are just like, no, I can't let you in. I gotta protect you. Blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, this guy is gonna kill you if I don't stop him first. So yeah, he does not explain everything, but he probably tells her as much as he can without violating whatever his oath. I mean, I'm sure he's takes the oath stuff seriously, so I'm sure he can't tell her details. But it's still more than most of a character in this situation will ever tell the wife, the kids, whatever. So I like that it happens at all. And so now what they do is Shaw and Shaw and Quinn, or Sutherland and Quinn, they go out to East Berlin and they make sure that they see the KGB photographs them again, but this time it's meeting with Sutherland. So Sutherland and him are in public getting photographed. And of course, the Russians know who Sutherland is. So seeing that meeting on top of the money and what happened with the French Secret Service and all the rest of it, they're convinced that whatever's going on, he is now a liability. Whether he's actually turning or whether he's about to be captured, either way, they cannot let him live. And so they send a bunch of people to go get him. So they raid his safe house. And they come in, and he manages to dive out of a window into the water. And good Aiden sees him, and it goes after him, tackles him, and the two of them are fighting, at which point Sutherland runs up and sees them. And when Carlos comes out of the water, he shoots him a couple of times and knocks him down. And then he sees the other Carlos come out of the water, and he's like, shit, which one did I shoot? And, of course, what he does is he says the password thing that he referenced earlier. He says, oh, it's a lot colder than it was. And good Aiden, who he shot, is the one who instantly says, yeah, but it's not as sticky as 2 summers ago. And then he realizes he shot the wrong guy. And then Carlos dives into the water and escapes. And they don't get him. And it's basically, so that's when Sutherland basically drags him out, and he's like all concerned, and he's really upset because he shot him. And he's like, well, whatever, we've done enough, and now he won't have anywhere to hide. And so then the next day we see that good Aiden is back home, and he's getting ready to go someplace with his kids, and he's out, and he's calling to the wife, and the wife's on the phone. She hangs up the phone, goes out, gets in the car, and then the car blows up. And then we cut to a funeral where 4 caskets, so good Aiden, wife, kids, dead, and Sutherland is there. And so I'm like, okay, did they actually kill him, or is this a thing so that Carlos thinks they're dead so that they're not targets anymore? And that's what it actually is. They are not actually dead. It's setting them up to be dead so that Carlos will stop looking for them. And then the next thing we see is somewhere out on the islands, I don't know, wherever, someplace, the whole family is out there, and they've basically been relocated, given new names, and they're living someplace else, and now they're normal. And there's this thing where at the very beginning of the movie, there is this long kind of panning shot that kind of comes from the street. It's got the weirdest opening scene of any movie I've seen in quite a while, where it starts with 2 streams of urine hitting the ground, and as the camera pulls back, it's 2 kids that are just peeing on the ground for some reason, and then it just keeps panning up and away. And I don't know why I don't know what that's supposed to be. It's just because you can tell it's urine. It's yellow water and they see feet, so you know what it is, but it doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's the weirdest opening. And I've watched fucking Itchy the Killer. But this is a strange opening for this movie. Like I said, the whole first 10 minutes is so different from the rest of the movie. But when it gets to the end of this long kind of crane shot that backs out, it goes eventually into a hotel room. And you see the real Carlos, and there's a spider web with a spider, and he's smoking a cigarette. And he takes the cigarette and he burns the spider and kills it. So then at the very end of the movie, we see good Aiden is sitting there and he's looking at his family and he's smoking a cigarette, and he looks down and there's a spider web and a spider. And you see him take his hand with the cigarette and he goes towards the spider. And I'm like, oh, is this indicating that he hasn't fully purged Carlos? But then he stops and he kind of pulls it back, and then he just kind of rubs the cigarette out, which of course is the visual signal that he's gone back to being good Aiden. So bad Carlos, unlike Two-Face, he has not submerged him. He's just gone. He's floated away in the clouds. And then we get some text that basically says, because at the time of this movie, the Jackal had been captured but not sentenced. Well, he has since been sentenced to like 3 life sentences. So he's still alive, but he'll never get out of prison because of all the stuff that he did. But the movie ends saying that he had been captured and he's still awaiting trial because in 97 they hadn't convicted him yet. And then the movie ends. And so before I go any further,
200 hours later,
because we just passed the 2-hour mark. So I really like this movie. It's clearly a movie that was made in the 90s with I wouldn't call it low budget, but it's certainly not a massive budget. You can see there's some.
So did they actually use
effects.
a fucking doppelganger to try and drive him out?
I don't think so.
Like, because it says it's based on a true story. I'm like, okay, so how much of this is true?
Carlos stuff. Now, I think that's more of what he did. Let's see. How did he get caught? Let's see. He was admitted to a hospital for a varicocelectomy to correct a low sperm count. After the operation, a police officer told him that the government had learned to plot to kill him. An armed escort took him and his bodyguards to a villa. Let's see. At 3 a.m., he was awakened by several men who pinned him down. They put him in cuffs, tranquilized him, and he was taken from the villa. So apparently the French police, so I guess the DST eventually did get him. So there you go. So I guess the DST finally did get him. That's how they got him. He just got spotted. Eventually he was seen.
Oh, there you go. Well,
yeah, apparently they got somebody who turned on him and identified where he was, so they knew where he was, and they just eventually got him. So
Can't run forever.
No. Yeah, and he's still alive. So, like I said, the movie is, I liked it a lot. It's much more character driven, which is why that opening 10 minutes is a little strange, because it's not going to be like that the whole movie. It's very different once it shifts away from the earlier terrorism events. I mean, there is the shootout with the French police, and it's a good action sequence, but that's a exception. And then at the very end with the KGB showing up, there's a lot of shooting, but that's the only two real action scenes, I would say, in a 2-hour movie outside the opening 10 minutes. So it is one of those things where don't be either thrown off or don't expect that first opening set of sequences to be the whole movie. It is much more about the psychology of it and this guy trying to figure out how he's going to imitate this guy and what it's doing to him. And, the two different, basically the Sutherland and Kingsley characters and their way of kind of getting him to where he needs to be to get this guy. And I also like the fact that they don't capture him at the end. He gets away.
No, but that was never the operation.
Had him and they lose him.
The operation was to basically make the Jackal look bad so that the Russians would go after him and screw things up.
But it's an anti-American type of ending where
but it's a very
get him.
But it's a very CIA. It is an actual sort of CIA story.
Yes, it is. Because what Sutherland says to him is, "Hey, you did it. He can't hide anywhere now. Everybody's going to want him. So you accomplished it." But what you typically want out of a movie like this, or what people would expect, is
I fucking killed him.
They would get him. That somehow, Quinn, even though he was bullied, had 2 bullets in him, he would somehow knock him out and drag him in and be like, "We got him, boss. He'll never escape again." And then they go have a beer. But no, in fact, he gets away and he's captured off screen after the events of the movie. So, like I said, I liked it a lot. I don't think I ever saw this. I don't remember ever seeing this movie, even on like cable or anything. So and it didn't seem to make much money, so maybe it never really played, but it was really good. So thank you, Mike, for the recommendation. It's $4 on Amazon to rent.
Yeah, no, I never
worth it.
Saw it.
Yeah, it is, because this is as I said in my short review, this is a straightforward movie. There's no weirdness. There's no subtitles. There's no long lingering shots that are ambiguous. There is a little bit of 90s effects jank. You'll just have to put up with that. It's not terrible enough to derail the movie, but you will notice it. There's some stock flame sound effects that will probably drive our friend Snetacore right up a wall, because I've heard them a million times. But outside of that, I think the important part is the character work, and I think that the main actors in this, outside of the accent kind of wafting in and out and never convincingly, outside of that, I think Sutherland is playing what feels like almost the younger version of the guy he is in JFK, where he's just like, this is how the world works. And Kingsley is, because the Mossad is often portrayed as among the most ruthless of all the secret services. Like, they don't have any qualms about anything. And so Kingsley's playing against that kind of presumption where, yes, he has that same goal, but he's not doing it with the same level of callousness that Sutherland is. So I like the way the movie plays around with what you kind of expect. And it just works very well. There's good dialogue. You've heard some of it. There's a lot I didn't capture. And a lot of it does feel very accurate to what, like you said, the goal of this type of operation would be. Like, the goal is always this one thing. And yes, would Sutherland have loved to have killed him as he tried to at the end, but didn't again? Sure, he probably would have liked to just kill him and be done with it. But he understands that they succeeded at what the main goal was one way or another, he will not keep going. And so he does eventually get caught. So like I said, good movie. I liked it. Simple, no big, over-the-top anything, just kind of good character work,
and the
good
dialogue
writing, good dialogue.
The dialogue sounds strong. I mean, Aidan Quinn's accent is kind of weird, but, I'll forgo that. Because nothing is worse than Pacino being Cuban, so...
being something. So, yeah. No, good movie. I would recommend it for anybody who likes, like, Sneakers, Spy Game, Hunt for Red October. Like, this is like a kind of a Tom
Clancy series,
type
by the
of
way,
story.
the Jackal series is based off the Day of the Jackal books.
Oh, that could be very good.
No, I'm sure, but I'm saying it's not based on this story.
No, I mean, if I was going to make a series, I probably would take all the actual terrorism events and just make fiction around it because he did so many things and you can just make stuff up because there's stuff that he's claimed he was part of that they're not sure if he was, and he's also denied things. So you could play around with even whether he's actually responsible. You could do a whole thing where, again, like Sutherland, he becomes obsessed and he starts just attaching things to the Jackal just to get justification. Kind of like what they did in Sandbaggers, where Burnside started kind of corralling the truth to be able to suit what he wanted to do, and not always with actual facts behind it, but they were so worried about terrorism that they greenlit it anyway.
Yeah.
So Sandbaggers is another thing like this, where I'm like, that it isn't always big shootouts. In fact, often it isn't. It's this background stuff to set up one specific thing, and that's what you have to execute. And so, again, in the heart of hearts, I'm sure Sutherland wanted to be the one who killed the Jackal and just ended him. But they still accomplished what they needed to, which is to make sure that he will not be able to do this forever. So, good movie. I liked it.
Excellent. It sounds good.
And that's it. So, if Rings of Power let you down, watch this if you're into spy stuff. And I would not describe it as a spy action thriller. I would just describe it as kind of a spy thriller. I would take the action part out. So again, it's the only weird part about it is that opening is so weirdly different from the rest of the movie. But don't let that stop you. Again, if you like sneakers, Clancy stuff, kind of the background, watching these people kind of execute a plan, and that's really most of the movie is the setup and execution of the plan, which, again, against what most movies would do. There isn't this moment where suddenly everything goes wrong and they have to suddenly improvise. No. The plan works. It has its bumps in the road, certainly, but it was a sound plan, and it worked. So there again, a little different than most movies where there will be some 11th hour thing where, Carlos is onto us and he's running. No, Carlos is never... When the KGB comes to get him, he's like, I don't know what information you're getting, but it's wrong. But he realizes there is no dealing with them, and that's why he just basically escapes rather than even try to reason with them, because he clearly understands that once the Russians think you've done something, you've done it, and that's it. He doesn't at any point think there is any way he's getting out of it once they come for him with, 8 guys with machine guns. He's like, yep, I'm done here, and just dives out a window. So, like I said, I like it. It feels like a well-structured and at least partially authentic idea of what this would be. So, for $4, absolutely worth it. Couple hours, and I like it. That's it. So on that note, we are done, and have a wonderful weekend. Whatever you choose to watch, maybe Rings of Power will work for you, but if it leaves you wanting some better writing in a tighter package, then I would say The Assignment, certainly not a fantasy film, or not as much of a fantasy film, maybe, except if you believe that Aidan Quinn is Cuban.
If he'd killed him, then it would have been a fantasy film.
Yeah, or when you hear that accent, that's clearly a fantasy if you think that's a Cuban accent, based on, direct experience of my co-host here. I wouldn't recognize a true Cuban accent, I don't think, if I ever heard it, but I'm pretty sure Landa would, and I'm guessing it didn't work in this movie. But that's okay, because he only dives into it a few times. I think he used the word punta correctly. I think I know what that was supposed to mean, and it seemed pronounced correctly. So I guess there's that for the those of us less versed in that particular accent and dialect. So like I said, good writing. I like the story. So if you're in the mood for something that's straightforward, no David Lynchian Red Room sequences, nothing like that, Assignment works really well. And on that note, we're done. We'll talk to you again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.